Hello and welcome to South Bay Sports Radio. Here's your host, Nick Ingram.
I am here today with Michael Wagner, the head football coach at Palos Verdes Peninsula High School. Coach, thank you for joining me.
Nick, it's great talking with you.
Beautiful. All right, Coach, let's go back to Friday's game against South Torrance. The Panthers build a 28-0 lead. South battles back. What happened in that game that you saw that was troublesome for your boys?
I think, we got comfortable, and instead of playing to keep winning, we started playing not to lose. And there's a difference in that mentality, and I think I really got to get our boys to understand there's never a time to let up, and until the clock says 0-0-0, you keep going. And we started coasting a little bit, when we came out of the second half and got the first possession and put another score on the board to go up 28-0. I looked at one of my assistants and I told him, I said, when they come within 7 on the margin, we better be ready to play. And I just kind of knew it was going to happen in the experience I have. And sure enough, one bad decision after another, and, they seem to snowball. And, it was a little bit of panic. Guys made some bad decisions on their own. And, I made a bad call. We were on a short porch, 4th and 1. And I went for it to keep the momentum going and to hold, time possession, and we didn't get it. And I gave South, and Mission, his staff are a really good staff. They made some really good adjustments at halftime, and they just put one in the zone right after we did it. And so that was my fault, for having that kind of, idea that I could keep doing it, And so, those are things that you grow and you reflect on, and it won't ever happen again. I'll tell you that much, And so we're just, we're learning our way. I graduated 33 seniors last year when Dave Young was a head coach, and I was on staff here. And, these guys have come into their own over the last 5 games. Not a lot of experience with some of the guys that are playing in their first varsity games, even as seniors. And so, we're a smaller squad too, with PV up on the hill with us. It's been really tough in the sense of, establishing a football culture up here, in the sense of all the kids that are playing youth football, the kids that are interested in football are going over to PV. But the kids are dedicated. They work hard. They put a lot of work in the weight room, and they're just learning their way through it. And so every game we've gotten better. And, that's something that I really see as a positive, and they've really bought in, and so I'm really proud of them and the work ethic that they have and the work they're putting in. My coaching staff has been phenomenal in supporting me, and so has the school administration. It's just been a really good, fit for that. So all put together, we're getting better, and we're trying. And, I think our kids are learning good football, and they're getting better every week. So we're just going to keep pushing with that idea ahead.
Who have been some of the players that have stood out to you? Not guys that you necessarily look at as, all right, I know this guy is going to get me X amount of yards, X amount of tackles, X amount of pass block ups, X amount of tackles for loss. Who have been some of those guys that have really stepped up to the call?
Well, I mean, of course, we had an all-league running back in Cameron Dolashai, and he came back this year and really put in some work in the off season. And, he's been a staple, and, we definitely are, relying on him. But, like in the system that we're running, we have other running backs, Jackson Accardo, Clinton Anakute. They've stepped up into their roles, as a starting linebackers, for a second year in a row. And so, all the guys that I think, we look to be leaders on the team, they really stepped up. It's the younger guys who are filling in roles, some sophomores, some juniors that didn't have a lot of experience that are just coming in and plugging away. John Kipp, one of our tight ends, DNs, he's a sophomore. He's really stepping up. Justin Gray, a sophomore, guard, has really stepped up. Aiden Ali, a junior lineman, O-lineman, tackles, really stepped up. And these guys have been playing some pivotal stuff for us. Our best lineman, Jake Denny, is he's a top prospect for, college. Because of his academics, his size, everything. And, we're really pleased with how he's leading these younger guys and, taking control. So I think it's really been a big team effort. Guys have really stepped into roles. We have 2 or 3 sophomores. Elijah Wiggins is a nickel for us, linebacker, DB kind of kid. And, he spot he spot plays on offense, and guys are really playing their roles. Ethan Baylog, our quarterback, he really stepped up as a senior. He was a really heavy defensive player last year, but he stepped up into our quarterback role. I mean, the guys that you're looking to make plays, they're making plays, for you. And so you can't ask for more, with a team effort, and that's just it. I mean, we're spreading the ball pretty evenly and amongst our backs, and, we're trying to throw the ball here and there when we can and take advantage of things. And, defensively, we're making them play as a unit, and, so they really are. And I think that's the mentality is that we're not going to get very far if we can't act as a team. And, they're seeing the results of individuals making bad mistakes, us making bad decisions and those kind of things. So it's a real positive in the sense of pushing that team culture and dynamic for us.
You start the season, 5 straight losses. How tough is that, not only on the coaching staff, but on the players, knowing that they're putting in the work, but they're unable to get over the hump to make the strides to put your team in the win column?
Yeah, Nick, it's a change in the culture and the expectation and those kind of things. And, I grind the kids. I'm an old school guy. I've been doing this for 35 years. I've been at St. Mark's, Sarah, El Segundo. I've been around a lot of places and helped out a lot of other coaches. And, the mentality is we grind, we squeeze all the juice out of them we can. And, they're getting used to that. And it was tough, man, the, third week, especially when you're looking at losses. And I'll tell you, if you go back and look at them, there was a self-destruction button we pushed somewhere along in every game, and the wheels just fell off, and, it ejected us out of the game. And there was those moments in every game we could account for. Just our last game against Esperanza, for instance, before this South game, we put an 11-play drive together on the first series, go score, and take control of it. And from that point on, the wheels just fell off in every way, shape, and form, and it's undisciplined play. It's a lack of effort. It's miscommunications. It's a lot of things. And so, got a new staff. Kids are getting used to us. We're getting used to them. We're getting used to each other. So it's all coming, it's all coming together like it should. We're just hoping that we can find more success in a really tough league, and so when you look at it, I think the kids were optimistic because they saw the process taking shape. They understood what we were doing. And there's never been a way, an area where I am is not as honest as I can be with my kids, in the sense of, if I blow something, man, I've been doing this long enough to know I got to go tell them I blew it. And, maybe I didn't take the right approach on this. And I've been talking to my senior leadership a lot about where they're at and, how far I can push them and, what their workload capacity is going to be. And they're really honest with me. They're like, man, coach, we're breaking. A lot of guys are banged up, stuff like that. And I'll be like, okay, we'll pull back a little bit. But, they're really good about putting in the work. And I got a really good senior class. And so, we're just hoping we can capitalize on that work ethic and that commitment they're making, because they're doing a really good job with it.
Is this your first head coaching job since you began coaching?
Yes. Well, I mean, I had some youth head coaching jobs, some other, semi-pro stuff, stuff like that. But at the high school level, I've always been the, number 2 DC kind of guy behind the scenes. When I was at Sarah, I was the AD and assistant principal. So, and I worked with Scott for so many years, there was really no need for me to ever consider taking on a head coaching job, the 15 years I was there. And at El Segundo, same thing. You had a really good head coach and, Steve Shevlin and Sean Green, they ran great programs. There was really no need for me to step into any roles, I didn't really feel the need to, and, never really wanted to be honest, just wanted to coach the kids and, and win. And so this has been a real eye opener for me after, 35 years of coaching. It's been a real eye opener, Nick. Let me tell you, young guys that are looking to be head coaches and stuff like that, man, I'd love to have a sit down with them and tell them, give you all the ins and outs of it. Because even in 35 years experience as an administrator, coach, board member, all kinds of stuff that I've done, it's nothing like you expect it to be. There's so many things that go on in being a head coach, and it's not just football. And so it's been tough in a lot of ways, adjusting to those things and letting go of some of the football, X's and O's, to be more of an administrator. I'm really relying on my, offensive coordinator, Daniel Zeman, relying on my defensive coordinator, Maurice McKnight, they're putting in a lot of work to, game plan and practice plan and keep things going. And my coaching staff's just been awesome. They've been so dedicated. I can't thank them enough. The guys that stuck with me here from Penn and the guys that came over from El Segundo with me have been just amazing and keeping it all together for me. It's been tough, but I relish it. It's something that I chose to do for the kids here at Penn. And, I'm not no quitter. So we're going to keep going, pushing them till, we see how we can get this program turned around.
There we go. All right, Coach, last one. The road doesn't get any easier. Now you've got Torrance. Torrance is 6-0. They've got beasts at almost every position. What are you looking at in this game as you take practice? This is Monday. So as you take practice from Monday to Tuesday, Tuesday to Wednesday.
Well, I'll just tell you honestly is we got to be physical. We got to bring our physicality to the game. Torrance is a physical team, man. You watch them on film, they're flying around, they're putting their helmet into people, they're tackling, they're gang tackling. Their coach is a great OC. He runs a really good offense. There's always, a check down. There's always something going on that, you can't stop. If you try to stop everything, you stop nothing. That old Sun Tzu thing. Try to defend everything, you're going to defend nothing. And so he makes you defend, and you want to try to defend everything because, you can see it coming at you, but he makes you decide. And he's a really good OC. He runs a great program. He's had how many years building it now? And, so, it's going to be tough, and I think that's just, where you match them is you got to get physical. And so, we're really pushing that with our kids this week about their physicality, about, their follow through on their effort and keeping things simple in front of us so we can just play football, the way it's meant to be played with the helmet and shoulder pads. And so we're telling them, it's time to get tough. It's time to get physical, and we've been pushing that idea all along. So just something we want to continue doing this week, keep to our game plan, and get physical, because last year, I'll just tell you, I think Torrance just out physicaled us, and I'm looking at the film from last year and, Silverman was an amazing linebacker. He came in and, set a tone with us and, we got out physicaled, and I don't want that to happen this year. So we're going to take it seriously about, meeting them there. And that's what we're trying to do is just keep that physicality about us. Cause I think we had a really good, until again, like the wheels fell off, until some bad decisions got made on my part, and our staff and, the kids that, we got to be physical and take advantage of this and play to win. Like I said, if we get up, we can't worry about getting behind or, getting caught up with. We got to keep pushing to win. And so we're giving them that mentality, and we're just going to continue that,
There you go. And it's no easy task. I mean, Jake Silverman, I think I saw he had 17 tackles in that game. They also ran a play on offense for him because I think that was his 18th birthday. And so, and that was a bomb, like not taking anything away from your program at all.
Yeah.
But Jake, you don't see a Jake Silverman in this area that much. That kid was a ball hawk from the time he was a sophomore and he's still a ball hawk at Nevada. And so, no.
I mean, there's a couple of kids in the area that are, he was a remarkable player and he alone set a tone with his team, when they came here and that tone carried through into the game. You could just see it. You could see, our guys and our physicality and, not to take anything away from the team that we had last year, because they were amazing. We had 33 seniors on that squad that just balled out for us here in our program. And so, to give them an idea about, what it takes is, I'm going to remind them of that. We need to be physical like this. They're going to come in with that mentality. And, we got to maintain our physicality with them. And, if we get punched, we punch back, and we got to, take every inch that we can get. And we got to just, play hard and fast all the time and play that 4 seconds of ball in between, the clock. And just for us, it's going to be a big task because they're a great team. They're 6-0. They got a lot of momentum. They got good coaches, great, players. I mean, and this year in the Pioneer, it seems like it's a pretty big toss up, for everybody with the losses that happened this last week. And, it reminds me of the old Pac 10 and 12, where everybody could pick anybody off any given Saturday, maybe that's true this year with the Pioneer, maybe there's going to be some more shuffling around, and some of us like us who, smaller programs in the Pioneer, we can get into the playoffs. It'd be great for us, that's what we're hoping. So we're pushing for that. So, hopefully pans out like it should, Nick, for us.
There we go. Michael Wagner, Peninsula High School. Coach, I'm going to wrap our interview with rapid fire. 5 questions. You are on the spot, beginning with top 3 all-time football players.
Well, I went to school with 2 of them, Marcellus Wiley, Adrian Clem, and I would have to name myself in that group, Mike Wagner.
There we go. Your least favorite NFL football team?
Dude, really no preference on any team except if I had to choose one, it'd be America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. You know, we won't talk about that too much.
Yeah, there you go. That's the best answer I've ever heard. All right. Favorite football movies?
Friday Night Lights, Any Given Sunday. I mean, Varsity Blues, The Program. Shoot, any football movie is a great football movie. You know, I mean, there's so many that have come out too. You know, so any movie that's about football, you know, you just count it as one of my tops. You know, I'd rather watch those than anything.
There we go. All right, Coach. A movie is being made about your life. Who plays you?
Tom Cruise.
Cruise. All right, last one. Your go-to South Bay eatery and the dish that you recommend there.
All right. So, you know, I was a resident El Segundo, coach there for a lot of years. There's a small deli there called Rinaldi's in town on Main Street. There's a sandwich called the Godfather, but you get it called Joaquin's Way. And it's with grilled onions and mustard. So you get a Godfather with grilled onions and mustard. It's Joaquin's Way. And so they know it. If you walk in and ask them for a Godfather Joaquin's Way, they know how to make it. So it's one of the best sandwiches I've ever had.
I may have to make a trip back to El Segundo just for that. As long as I don't leave my wallet in El Segundo.
There you go.
Thank you, Coach, very much.
Thanks, Nick.